you, Joel. Good to be with you. Yeah, I heard it was a great summit this morning. We want to welcome on the stage with me Elizabeth Fredheim and Scott Filippi. Elizabeth is Senior Director of Supply Chain Sustainability at Walmart, and Scott's with UPS, and his role is Senior Director of Supply Chain and Sustainability. Oh, excuse me, I just repeated your title. Senior Director, both Senior Directors, that's what threw me off. Senior Director of Maintenance and Engineering of International Operations at UPS. So to frame the conversation a little bit, well, my organization is both a startup incubator of portfolio companies that include energy and transportation and sustainable cities in terms of the verticals that they focus on. We've also launched over the last year a transportation electrification partnership. And in September with Mary Nichols of CARB and the County of Los Angeles, the Mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, PG&E, DWP, the largest municipal utility in the country, a number of other partners, Southern California Edison, we released our Zero Emissions 2028 roadmap, which I've talked to both of you and your teams about in the past. And it really is, in the spirit of your session this morning, the summit that you had is trying to get cross-collaboration. How do we get the utilities talking to the regulators, talking to the OEMs, talking to the fleet managers, et cetera. And so it's really important to think about how we create this regional collaboration, because as we move towards transportation electrification, particularly the goods movement system, it requires enormous collaboration and innovation. And we've seen some fantastic things enter into the potential product sphere, some that are on the road soon, and some new players entering into the market from the OEM side. But here we have two of the largest operators of fleets in the country, and very important players in terms of what we can do and the challenges ahead, and how we find those solutions that are going to take us towards this vision, this future of a zero emissions future with goods movement. LA, just as quick context, the mayor of Los Angeles, mayor of Long Beach said ports of LA and Long Beach had to be, the trucks had to be zero emissions by 2035, cargo handling equipment by 2030. Our roadmap, we set the goal of 2028, which is when the Olympics are in Los Angeles, when we welcome the world. We want to accelerate progress. So there's big challenges ahead. So Scott, starting with you, what do you see is some of the obstacles and some of the opportunities for UPS as you look at fleet electrification for the future?
Well, the obstacles are the opportunities for us, really, because the electrification of a fleet vehicle could be transformational to how we do business in the future. So, there's challenges when it comes to infrastructure, of course, but the opportunities for reduced maintenance, which we're hoping to see very soon, although that hasn't been quite determined yet, the savings for energy, the ability to make the vehicle safer because of a drive-by-wire platform, brake-by-wire. The challenges, the biggest challenges are the fact that there's not a lot to choose from. Yeah. And that's what we're on the cusp of. So we're not quite at a tipping point, but we're maybe at a plateau at this point.
So we need more solutions from OEMs and startups that we're seeing come to the fore. Elizabeth, you and I have talked about the challenges Walmart faces, including while you have big parking lots and infrastructure surrounding your stores, it doesn't mean it's a simple solution of where you put the heavy-duty charging infrastructure and the other things you have to consider for as you change over the fleet across your vast supply chain and real estate footprint. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities for Walmart?
I think for us, right now there are definitely a lot of challenges that we're working through. And as Scott mentioned, I think with the path of technology that's going, we're going to be able to work through a lot of them. The biggest challenges for us in the end of that, I think, is the infrastructure piece. And some of that is because of our duty cycle. Our fleet doesn't go out and come back to the same center at night. And it's very dynamic. So the best analogy I can give is like a taxi service. So when a truck makes its delivery, the system kind of re-optimizes at that point, and the truck goes wherever the system says it's the best for it to go. So a truck can go out and come back in one day, or they might be out for 5 days and not come back. So it's very difficult for us to say, put a charging station here, because our trucks are always going to pass, that point. So that is a difficulty for us, I think, is going to be in the lack of standards right now. even though we do have a lot of space at our distribution centers and at some of our stores, we don't have the space to put up, a different charging station for each OEM that comes onto our property. And we want to make sure that we're working with our partners like UPS and other carriers, that when they come to our lots, that they also can charge at our properties. The one opportunity that I think all of the opportunities that Scott mentioned, we're looking forward to as well. The one that's maybe a little bit different for us is a lot of our stores we can't deliver to at night because of noise ordinances. So if we're using quieter equipment, does that give us opportunity to even shift some of the operations into a time when there's less congestion on the road, things like that, as we move forward? So.
Yeah, that's an exciting thing. I mean, when I was working for the mayor of Los Angeles, one of the side benefits of electrification, we talked a little bit about this on our call, and you just mentioned it, for buses, which are now being electrified in Los Angeles County through the Metropolitan Transit Authority's commitment to all electric buses by 2030, and they just committed to try to get to 100% by 2028. The benefits of for neighborhoods as well as the people that, the drivers as in the occupants is pretty enormous. And what are the other sort of, I think you said this too, Scott, is for a Tesla or a Leaf driver, it can be an emotional choice as much as a financial one. For fleet operators, it's got to make business sense. So what are other things besides the dollar and cents? What other opportunities do you see for fleet electrification in the coming years?
Well, I think more choices that allow us to do a different model on how we see return on investment. It's not necessarily just going to be about maintenance cost reductions and fuel savings. It's going to be about maybe there isn't a value to being able to deliver, in the evening time. We have some of the same restrictions throughout the world. So the ability to deliver within a city, the ability to have automated features to help reduce congestion because you can maybe keep traffic flowing because the vehicle has connectivity. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of things that the right platform and moving in the right direction. We shouldn't just be thinking about an incremental change from conventional fuel to electric. We should be thinking about transformational change and how really to take full advantage of an electrified platform.
Yeah. One of the other things we talked about is sort of the notion of how do we get people, like you talked about it just now as well, the infrastructure and the vehicles working together. What's the business model, operating model? How do those all work together? How does an Air Resources Board here in California, which is really seeding so much of the innovation through their funding through cap and trade dollars, what other innovations can we see? And our organization just released a request for information to the industry for trucks, infrastructure, and pilots in collaboration with CARB as well as the ports of LA and Long Beach. And we really hope to see not just a BYD or a Daimler through Freightliner saying, hey, we've got these trucks that are on the road and these are what are coming. We want to see hopefully a Walmart or a UPS or anybody in this audience put forth what do they think we should be thinking about in terms of pilots and what could CARB fund to really try to drive forward innovation, including from the startup community. We saw some great entrepreneurs earlier. Elizabeth, anything outside the box that you think would be exciting to see for kinds of sets of solutions or even more mundane challenges you're facing than sort of the unknown?
Well, I think with a lot of these technologies, it's not a matter of just does it work or doesn't, right? So for us, the over-the-road application is going to be difficult, especially in the early years. So instead, we're focused on other applications like yard trucks that stay on our distribution center property, right? That's a great application for us for electric vehicles. We're looking at electric standby reefers. 98% or so of our vehicles are sleeper trucks, and we have auxiliary power units on all of those trucks. For those of you that don't know what an auxiliary power unit or APU is, when a driver stops at night, they have this smaller engine that will run to provide them like the heat, cooling load, and what we call hotel load, so something that will allow them to watch their television, run their refrigerator, their microwave, et cetera. Those right now run over diesel. So is there an opportunity for us to electrify those? Yeah. So I think we need to think out of the box with these technologies and kind of look throughout our operation, where can they be applicable today, and then continue to work on those longer range opportunities.
That's good stuff. We're going to turn to hopefully get some questions from the audience here in a minute or online. Tell us where you're both, give us a couple concrete examples of where you're piloting EVs currently in your fleets, and where would you like to see them being run on the roads? So for UPS, why don't you start, Scott?
Well, I think the largest example we have is in London, which that's an example of it's going to be a condition of doing business. So in addition to that, we also piloted, and we're doing a project with a smart grid system there. So we're able to take advantage of the power available to the facility and meter it according to what the energy needs are, not necessarily, a full maximum charge rate. So you can manage the power. And basically, we were able to take a building that we initially planned for about 65 vehicles, and now at least 170 to 100 and maybe 200. But that entire facility in Camden, which is downtown London, can now be electrified. So while we're not fully electrified there yet, we have the ability, and now I don't have the angst to wonder if we do put it all electric, can we support it through the infrastructure? We will be able to do that.
That's exciting. Congratulations. How about for you, Elizabeth?
Thanks for going first on that, Scott. I always try to tell Scott UPS is my hero. They're so great at all of this stuff. So for us, like I said, electrification over the road is difficult. We're working with several yard truck providers on their solutions.
Can you tell us where, or is that?
We have one truck running in Ottawa, Kansas, and then we've been trialing a truck in California as well. The other aspect is many people don't know, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when you see like a corporation of a retail store, you forget that, oh yeah, there actually is a head office that runs that company. And we have about 4,500 passenger vehicles for our market managers, safety managers, facility maintenance folks, et cetera. And so for some of those vehicles, we've got all electric in place, and we're continuing to see where can we put all electric, where can we put hybrid, so even at the passenger car
That's great.
space.
The where is also important, as we know from demand charges, rates. That's all important things for fleet operators like yourselves to consider. Do we have any good questions, Elaine?
Yeah, we have a couple. So, but one of them is really about lessons learned. So, obviously there are a lot of barriers to overcome in terms of infrastructure for fleet electrification. And I mean, you're talking about massive swaths. So I remember Bloomberg Energy Finance had predicted that, it's going to take a little bit of a heavier lift in order to get fleets electrified. But once that actually happens, especially in the commercial and industrial sector, that it will really just change everything, because you're going to get this whole swath of infrastructure created as well. So what are some of the lessons learned and barriers that you've had to overcome so far, and what do you think is really going to be that leverage point in terms of getting you over that hump?
There's a lot of lessons learned. We were talking this morning, obviously not everybody here was at the summit this morning, but even internally, some of the barriers and just trying to get, our own internal organizations, whether it be the fleet managers or the maintenance team or, our finance group that's looking at more of a traditional ROI, and we need to get them over to more of the total cost of ownership model. And I don't think we did a great job of communicating and going out there. I mean, we were excited about the technology, we were excited about the potential, and we really didn't go out and prepare them for what they were going to see and what we were bringing to them. So that was a lesson learned for us, to really go out ahead of this and make sure that everybody's ready for it and knows what you're doing, because it is very new technology. I told the story where we put infrastructure into a distribution center for standby electric trailers. And we really put in the infrastructure, sent out the trailers, and said, yeah, plug them in. And literally the day these trailers showed up, they had a torrential downpour. And so the associates, who no one had given any training on these trailers, go out there, they're standing in a puddle of water, holding a plug, you know, with a 2-3-inch wire on it, and they're like, no way. You know, I'm not plugging this in. So I think for us, I think when we can get a total cost of ownership model that everyone can agree on and believe in, I think there's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions. You know, how long are the batteries going to last? You know, are we going to get the 300 miles? Aren't we going to get the 300 miles? And how does that impact everything? I think when we can put something like that together, we're going to get the buy-in that we need from, you know, the broader organization to really push things forward.
So I would say that we've learned something on every project, and what we do know is that there's no model or simulator that can ever duplicate what real world looks like. And if you make sure that every stakeholder that's involved internally understand that there will be problems, no matter what you think or what's been simulated or modeled, and that way expectations are set that there'll be problems along the way, but it's a natural path to, you know, where we're going to be going. And you know, and electrification is going to be a viable technology soon for the fleets. I mean, if you think about a Nissan Leaf or a Tesla, something that's been designed for that from the ground up, and if a manufacturer puts their best foot forward, it can be a really wonderful product. And I think, you know, we're at an exciting time with technology, and you don't have to wait for the perfect solution to show up. You should, you know, start to evolve and take advantage of it so you can shape what it looks like moving ahead.
One more, that's it? Oh, we got 1 minute left. So 10 years from now, the Olympics will be in California, in Los Angeles. The world will be watching what's going on. California's leading the world. Well, certainly one of the leaders, if not the world, in terms of climate action, despite differing opinions of things in science and action in Washington. What do you think will be happening in goods movement and fleets in 10 years, in 2028, when the world arrives to LA and California? Any predictions? Or fantasies or optimal dreams?
My prediction would be that electric vehicles will be a significant part of delivery fleets, and a zero-emission tailpipe will be a positive byproduct of the right technology to do the job. And that's where, you know, mass deployment takes place, because they coincide with business decisions.
Right. Elizabeth?
I think, you know, Scott said it well, that with the delivery and the in-town duty cycle, I think it's a pretty easy case to make. And so I think we will see a lot more of these vehicles, because it's not just about zero emissions.
Yeah.
You know, there are some real business benefits, some real community benefits, and I think as companies get that technology out there, I think people are going to bite on.
Yeah. Exciting times ahead. Well, thank you both. The audience, please join me in thanking our panel.